So, as most of you well probably know, but I've talked about my love of railways before on this channel. We even had that fantastic conversation with Gareth Dennis about HS2 and its cancellation of, the routes, the northern leg, and of course the pros of HS2 would have brought to sort of our rail network. And now that it's gone, well, things can only get much worse. And I even had a conversation at the local elections recently, a conversation with my local Green Conservative councillor to say, although he didn't win, but I talked to him about HS2, and I said, look, opposing HS2, I know there are a lot of people in and around sort of here in Yorkshire that oppose HS2, but the benefits of HS2 far outweigh, I think, any negative side that can be sort of brought forward to it. So it makes me really depressed. Always makes me really depressed when we see our rail industry, something that if the government was actually serious about leveling up, would have been at least at the heart of its ideas. I mean, we had this grand strategy of there was going to be the HS2 was going to have this northern leg on it, and then there would be sort of although its name gets changed quite a bit, Northern Powerhouse Rail going, right across the country, what is it? Liverpool to Hull would be connected sort of right across, going through sort of there to sort of Birmingham, I think Leeds, and right across the country. Something that is desperately needed in this country because we've got excellent access going north and south. But if you want to go east to west, you've got a lot of problems trying to do that. But on to sort of this, because unfortunately our railways are in a bit of a problem. And if Labour gets into power, I would seriously hope that their strategy of sort of industrial strategy and how to sort of really get Britain sort of moving again, then railways have to be at the heart of any plan they create. So, unfortunately, I don't think we heard too much about railways at the conference, which is a bit of a shame, but I really think we should have. But there you go. There was plenty of other stuff. I will be doing a Pony Club video about what I thought on the Labour conference today. So watch out for that today. And by the way, if you are a Patreon member or you are a Pony Club member, like I say, you do get access to that video. Like I say, Patreon links down below. And of course, the YouTube subscription to join the Pony Club is also down below as well. So, as always, before we go jumping into this article today, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe. And of course, down below there are links to, again, my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, and of course the YouTube thank you page, and of course the Pony Club page as well. So let's go into this today again. So this comes from The Guardian with the title of "The Great British Railway is Dead. Rail industry is at its lowest ebb since the days of Railtrack." Barely 18 months have elapsed since the starry-eyed Grant Shapps unveiled the blueprint for a revolutionary Great British Railways. But it has already had the flavour of optimistic misnomer. Even an adequate British railway could be welcomed by passengers stranded by everything from Antivi's collapse to the failing infrastructure and the unprecedented strikes. Only a fraction of the timetable trains actually continue to run between London and Britain's largest cities, though the operator Avanti has pledged to start its recovery of full services this week. The national strikes, the likes of which had not been seen for over 30 years, are now a regular occurrence and have little signs of breakthroughs in the talks, with the infrastructure projects that have all been pared back or even shelved, with the public all but gaslit with their re-announcement schemes for new railways. The rail financial structures credited by proponents of privatisation with revitalising the industry for 25 years have been ripped up. The pandemic played a hugely damaging role, prompting the blanket scrapping of franchising, and even passenger revenue disappeared. But COVID arguably only accelerated the death of a system that was already acknowledged to be falling apart. The William Shapps Review, commissioned back in 2018, the long gesticulating and delayed, ended up with the proposed creation of the Great British Railways, a guiding mind bringing together network rail and train operators, issuing better contracts with sensible fares and ticketing, putting passengers first and the independence of the government micromanagement. Few in the industry argued with its conclusions, but there are few that are now exactly when or if they will actually be followed through with. The transition team is in place, working up on the details from the white paper, but many seem to be very little prospect in this parliamentary session for the bill promised in the Queen's speech. Even before Shapps actually departed in Boris Johnson's wake, the Department for Transport officials found themselves in an unexpected battle. A year after the plan was released, the fundamental aspects were not agreed with the Treasury, and internal documents seen by The Guardian have revealed clashes over core policy issues, such as whether the new GBR would indeed have been independent control of timetabling, designing of services, and whether revenue risk should lie. Civil servants have grown increasingly disillusioned with process, despite millions of spent, the time invested, and the platoons of consultants employed. And this is it. You've got to consider the sheer amount of time that has gone into this, and this isn't the first time we've seen these actions take place, and it's so disappointing to see all these plans come forward, be created time and time again. But whenever we get a plan, this is how we're going to do it. This is how it's going to be funded. The second that plan gets released, it always seems to fall apart. And the sad thing is, if any government were actually to do this, they would have had a massive success on their hands. If the government had actually genuinely followed through on this, it would have been something that Boris Johnson could have shouted from the heavens as an actual success. And here's the thing, I've said before, if any prime minister, even if it's a Conservative, comes up with a good idea that has a good outcome that I think is good, I'll praise it. I'll say, yeah, that was a good idea. Even if Liz Truss, from her wild libertarian right-wing addled mind, actually comes up with a serious good idea, I would not be opposed to saying, okay, Liz, you've actually got a good idea. Congratulations. But I have yet to actually see these ideas, be followed through on. But we'll see. So anyway, back to it. The most tangible sign of action was, of course, the public poll launched this summer. In Shapps' wheeze, the former future HQ of GBR, the results were still under wraps. Unsettling rail staff already installed in London and Milton Keynes, already summing whether to have to ponder whether they were really ready for life in Doncaster, even if the favourite York didn't make it. That announcement is already one of the first in a many of Intray's new reviews for Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan, even if the railway's rider purgatory may not end soon. But, as one rail source puts it, something's got to give. The industry is in a complete mess. There is no certainty. GBR was meant to be the future, and delaying it is just prolonging the paralysis. Christian Walmer, a rail historian, makes a blunter prediction. GBR is dead. There is no legislation. They will have to just muddle through, and the grand ideas did not really accord. Does this government really like the idea of a strong arm's length organisation running the railways? The railway problems are evident, he says. When you travel in the trains, there's a feeling that no one really cares if the trains are late or where you need to go. If they keep trying to push through cuts, it will deteriorate. There is a real breakdown in morale, managers and staff. And I agree. I do get that feeling as well when I travel on the railways quite a bit. So I get that feeling, definitely. Absolutely. And you can see why strike action is so prevalent at the moment. But back to it. The mini-budget unveiled on Friday by Kwasi Kwarteng is unlikely to help. Announcing the plans to stop strikes to hamper unions asking for cost of living pay rises, while effectively raising the pay for bosses across the negotiating table, let alone its wider economic effects on the industry. The government did not even confirm whether it will be taking Shamp's GDPR plans forward. A DPTO spokesman said on this, our railways are in need of modernisation, and this new government is committed to building a reliable, punctual, and affordable service fit for the 21st century. Well, why don't you do it? Why don't you do it? You know? They added, we're accelerating a number of rail projects through our ambitious new growth plan. Our £96 billion integrated rail plan will deliver improvements quicker than the previous plans and benefit millions of generations to come by electrifying lines, delivering high-tech trains, and powering up projects like the HS2. But you're not bringing back the northern leg of it, which is a massive disappointment. The promise to accelerate the infrastructure schemes, such as the Northern Powerhouse Rail, listed vaguely as number 96 in the appendix of the growth plan, it revived a very skeptical welcome from the industry, which has waited years for a basic pipeline of works to be updated. These are closer to the flagship schemes already approved, such as the East-West Rail, which are already hinting that they are maybe more likely to be abandoned. From Walmart, the industry, still under instruction to close the $2 billion revenue gap from its lost commuters, is still at its lowest ebb since the disaster-scarred days of Railtrack over 2 decades ago. The problem this time is that it is really structural, he says. You can only see a way out with a very strong direction. But after franchising, there is no real idea what to do. Reform may instead come from a different political direction. Labour, leading strongly in the polls since Friday, has reaffirmed its confidence in its commitment to renationalisation of the rails as train operators. And as contracts expire, unless GBR is up and running by 2024, it may find that it has run out of track. So I do have a bit of hope that maybe we will eventually solve this, but even then, you've got to think, these types of big infrastructure projects can take years to really sort of form through. So make no mistake, we sort of British rail travelers are still in, I think, for a good number of years of disruptions, strike action, and just generally, unfortunately, unhappy traveling, which is a real disappointment because I love traveling by train. It is my preferred form of travel. I just find it, it's such an easy thing to do. You go to your railway station, get on your train, you know where it's going to be, what time you're probably going to get there. Everything's just so easy. And yet the stuff behind it is made far, far, far more difficult, unfortunately. And we have had 12 years of a government who has said that it will place rail at the heart of any of its plans to level up, going all the way back to sort of, the big northern powerhouse. I mean, anyone who believed Boris Johnson's guff about leveling up, why didn't you believe it when David Cameron was bringing forward the northern powerhouse? Because I'll tell you now, David Cameron's and George Osborne's plan, even though they didn't follow through on it, was far more of a concrete plan than Boris Johnson ever put forward for leveling up. But there you go. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. And as always, do have, happy train journeys, for us. And if you are, frustrated by, bad train travel, I sympathize. Like I say, trains are one of the best places to go and read. So, take a book with you, use Audible, all the other services are available. Let's stress that. But hey, happy travels, everyone. Hopefully things will only get better before, well, they inevitably get worse. But as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.